Hi, I'm Carol, and I'm going to take you behind the tape and into the crime scene of one of the most simplistic yet stunning capers in history with miniatures that I've created. Now, everyone is familiar with the Mona Lisa. Is she smiling? Is she not? Do her eyes follow you around the room, or are you just paranoid? The originator of the smize, perhaps? In any case, she's one of the most famous and recognizable images in the world. But what if I told you that this 500-year-old lady only gained her worldwide fame a little over 100 years ago when she went missing? This is the story of the Mona Lisa heist. Let's travel back to the scene of the crime. Paris, 1911. An Italian man by the name of Vincenzo Peruggia worked at the Louvre for a few months at a time. He was hired to create protective glass cases for works of art in the museum. While working there, he took a break and perused a book on Italian artwork stolen by Napoleon Bonaparte. A fierce patriot, Vincenzo was infuriated that such treasures were taken from his homeland. It was then that he decided to take matters into his own hands by reuniting an Italian artwork with its country of origin, and thus he began to conspire. Once his work at the Louvre was completed, Vincenzo put his plan into action. He would strike on Monday, August 21st, 1911. Now, sources differ as to when Peruggia entered the museum. Some note that he joined a typically busy Sunday afternoon crowd and spent the night in a supply closet until the next morning. Others note that he would later say he entered on Monday morning by following in behind workers. Either way, he was in that museum on that Monday as planned. At this time, the Louvre was closed on Mondays. However, that didn't mean that the museum was empty. On the contrary, Mondays were days that staff such as maintenance workers and curators could get to work without the public getting in their way. This provided the perfect opportunity for Vincenzo to nab a piece of Italian history without thousands of eyes on him, while his former co-workers were busy with their own tasks. According to Vincenzo, he had not decided which artwork he was going to take before he acted. He had contemplated works by several Italian artists, but he ultimately decided on the Mona Lisa on the morning of the job due to its size. The famous painting measures just 30 inches by 21 inches, making it a more manageable load and quite small compared to other Italian pieces in the museum, the largest of which could measure over 30 feet. That's hella big. Keyword here is compared to other Italian art pieces in the museum. Now, for some perspective, it said that Vincenzo was somewhere between 5'3" tall and 5'4". From the looks of his pictures, he doesn't appear to be that big of a guy. I'm 5'3". So Vincenzo is roughly about my size. So let me just show you what he was working with. She was more or less this size, and I say that because it's hard to determine the exact thickness of her frame, so my sample frame here might be a little different in thickness. However, what you see inside the frame is the Mona Lisa at 30 inches by 21 inches, which is her actual recorded dimension without a frame. So for the sake of this demonstration, she was in and around this size, and this was what Vincenzo, a man roughly my size, was working with. And if you don't believe me, take a look at this picture and compare her face to the people around her. I know, my reality was shattered too. She's a lot bigger than I imagined. Vincenzo's cause may have seemed like a righteous one, reclaiming works of art which had been stolen from his homeland by Napoleon. And let's be real, it's not like these imperialist institutions don't have it coming. But Vincenzo actually made a mistake in his selection of the Mona Lisa. If he sought vengeance for artwork stolen from Italy, that painting was never stolen. You see, Leonardo da Vinci spent the last few years of his life living in the French court during the reign of King Francis I. When da Vinci died in 1519, King Francis took ownership of the artwork left in his studio, which included the Mona Lisa. Meaning, the painting that Vincenzo chose for his infamous heist had actually been in France for 250 years before Napoleon was even born. Nevertheless, Vincenzo had made his decision, and now it was time to act. Dressed in a white smock to blend in with the standard uniform of museum workers, Vincenzo made his way into the gallery where Mona Lisa was displayed at the time. His previous work at the museum proved crucial as Vincenzo had actually fitted the art piece with its protective glass. Because of this, he was able to swiftly remove the piece from the wall. Now, this is where it seems that Vincenzo must have had help, as the whole unit weighed nearly 200 pounds. Two Italian brothers, Vincenzo, a different Vincenzo by the way, and Michele Lancelotti have been mentioned as co-conspirators with Peruggia. I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I could swiftly and quietly remove 200 pounds off a wall and walk away by myself. Maybe Peruggia got in a whole bunch of arm curls in preparation for this heist. Either way, Vincenzo successfully gained possession of the artwork and whisked it away to a nearby stairwell. There, he dumped the frame and the glass, leaving him with the original 18-pound painted wood panel. To cover up his new treasure, Vincenzo tucked the Mona Lisa under his white smock, readying for his escape. He made his way down the staircase to a door at the bottom that required a key to be opened. Not a problem. Vincenzo already thought this through and came equipped with a copy of the necessary key. However, when he went to unlock the door, the key didn't work. Where's a bobby pin when you need one? At this point, Vincenzo is trapped in the stairwell, trying in vain to get out. Panicking, he uses a screwdriver to remove the doorknob when suddenly a plumber passes by. Surely this was the end of the road for Vincenzo, but to his surprise, the plumber offered to open the door with his key along with some pliers when Vincenzo told the man that the doorknob was missing. The plumber would later note that he assumed Vincenzo was just another employee because he was wearing a white smock. Talk about faking it till you make it. Gotta dress the part. Once the door was open, Vincenzo made his way across the Cour de Sphinx, passed through another gallery, and then the Cour Visconti, before heading towards the main entrance where he escaped. Now outside, it's believed that Vincenzo removed the white smock, wrapping it around the painting, chucked the doorknob into the street, and made his way to a train station, boarding the 7:47 a.m. express train out of Paris. You would think that a prized item such as the Mona Lisa would be noticed missing quite quickly and alarms raised immediately, but that wasn't the case. First, the Mona Lisa was not as famous then as she is today. In fact, her kidnapping is largely credited to the worldwide fame she's currently enjoying. According to art history professor Noah Charney, whichever artwork Vincenzo would have stolen that day would have become the most famous in the world. That being said, the Mona Lisa was hailed a Renaissance masterpiece by those in the art world at that time, but to the broader public, she wasn't anything special. The Mona Lisa was humbly enjoying her last moments of not being the Louvre's most famous painting until enter Vincenzo, the man who purposefully and inadvertently changed all that. She was so low-key that it took over 28 hours before someone even noticed she was gone. Better yet, the person who noticed she was missing didn't even work at the museum. An artist visiting the museum the next day to capture the general scene of the gallery got himself all situated, ready to put brush to canvas, when he realized something wasn't quite right and noticed the Mona Lisa was missing. Probably under a stove somewhere. In its place were 4 bare hooks. Assuming the painting had been taken to be photographed, a project currently underway at the museum, the artist inquired with the guard as to when the painting would be returning. The guard went to check on the status of the painting and was informed that the Mona Lisa was not with the photographers and was in fact missing, igniting an international scandal. French police immediately jumped into action, looking for witnesses and any potential leads as to where the painting could have gone. One witness claimed to have seen a man board a train to Bordeaux with a poorly wrapped picture under his arm. People carrying any sort of package came under police suspicion in the days following the theft. Checkpoints were set up on roads out of Paris where cargo was checked. Boats and trains leaving the country were also searched for signs of the painting. The list of rumored suspects ranged from average working people all the way up to famous robber barons and a king. Even Picasso was suspected, yet nothing turned up. Some people even started to believe that it was all a hoax. Newspapers around the world were abuzz as the news of the theft broke. And proving the Mona Lisa was not the star that she is today, the Washington Post ran a story about it, but published a photo of another of Da Vinci's works, the Mona Vanna. To their credit, it does bear a resemblance to the Mona Lisa, but definitely isn't the piece that went missing. Some believe that the Mona Vanna is an early depiction of the Mona Lisa. To me, the Mona Vanna is kind of like Mona Lisa after dark, after she's had a little too much grape juice. The only real clue left behind by Vincenzo was a single fingerprint left on the glass from the frame, which he discarded in the stairwell. However, for that to prove useful, French officials would have to match it to someone, and none of the 257 museum employees at the time were a match. Without any other clues, the trail ran cold. After a week-long shutdown, the Louvre finally reopened to the public, who flocked to see the bare spot where the Mona Lisa once hung, a literal mark of shame for the museum and French government who ran it at the time. For 2 years, police were unsuccessful at locating the painting. So, where in the world could have Vincenzo taken it, and how did he keep it under wraps for that long? Believe it or not, Vincenzo, with this hot item in his possession, never left Paris. He actually took her home with him to a boarding house where he was staying. He initially kept her in a cupboard before moving her under the stove. Told you! And finally, into the false bottom of a trunk. It's said that Vincenzo would keep a postcard of the Mona Lisa on his mantle, a cheeky hint to the incredible treasure stowed in his humble room. Apparently, getting away with an internationally famous heist gives one a boost of confidence. It's been reported that Vincenzo attempted to, or at least wanted to sell the Mona Lisa. At his trial, he was insistent that he would have only sold it to someone in Italy, but the media frenzy around the piece presumably kept him from making a deal in order to avoid his own arrest. However, Vincenzo must have grown tired of his secret and finally decided to cut a deal. Vincenzo sent an art dealer in Florence, Italy, a letter offering to sell him the now incredibly famous artwork. He assured the dealer of the authenticity of the piece and offered him a 25% discount on the price if he made sure the piece was displayed in a public gallery in Italy. He signed it Leonard, or Leonard. He offered a discount on the Mona Lisa. Like, discount t-shirts, sure, but the Mona Lisa? You gotta remember, she is the Mona Lisa now. She's already been missing. People know who she is now. And he's like, 25% off. The art dealer, along with the director of the famous Uffizi Gallery in Florence, whom he showed the letter, believed it to be fake. But on December 10th, 1913, Leonard showed up unannounced in Florence and called on them. Leonard asked the art dealer to come to his hotel room to view the piece for himself. The art dealer agreed, bringing along the gallery director. There, the two men watched as Vincenzo pulled item after item out of a trunk, believing him less and less with each piece removed. When finally, Vincenzo removed the false bottom in the trunk, and before their eyes, beneath a red silk cloth, was the Mona Lisa in all her glory. The gallery director examined the piece by comparing it with a photograph and noted the Louvre stamp and item number on the back, ultimately confirming its authenticity. The man agreed to Vincenzo's price of 500,000 francs, but told him that the artwork needed further authentication back at the Uffizi Gallery. With the Mona Lisa in tow, the trio leave the hotel and make their way there, where the gallery director confirmed without a doubt that she was the real deal. The two men convinced Vincenzo to leave her in their care while they got approval for his well-deserved patriotic reward. Vincenzo, delighted with himself, made his way back to his hotel room where he was arrested shortly thereafter. Now armed with the name, police in Paris were finally able to search and find Vincenzo's fingerprints on file, which had been collected for previous minor offenses. And lo and behold, they were a solid match to the prints found on the glass more than 2 years earlier. After 28 months, the Mona Lisa had finally been recovered and her kidnapper identified. Vincenzo pleaded guilty to his crime, stating, "I repeat, that I took the picture with the set idea that haunted me for a long time to return it to Italy. I have nothing to add." He was originally sentenced to a year in prison, but an appeal shortened it to just 7 months, and he was released almost immediately, as he'd been in jail awaiting trial for that amount of time already. He was heralded a hero in Italy. But the onset of World War I the following month eclipsed Vincenzo's short-lived fame. On January 4th, 1914, the Mona Lisa was reinstated at the Louvre, marking the beginning of her illustrious career as the most famous work of art at the museum. While this case in Vincenzo Peruggia might have been forgotten by time, the impact of the Italian patriot's actions are greater than he could have possibly imagined, with millions of people visiting the Louvre every year to get a glimpse of the Mona Lisa, who, without Vincenzo, may have been destined for a dimly lit corner of the museum and a life in obscurity. And just like that, history was made. Let me know what other cases you'd like to see explored in miniature.